Okay, it's 5:30 on Tuesday, November 23rd, and I'd like to call the City of Twinsburg Finance Committee meeting to order. I'll call the roll. Mrs. Walker.
Present.
And I'm here. Sam Scaffidi's here. Also in attendance is Mr. Bellin, Mrs. Stauffer, Mayor, Law Director, Mr. Maestros, and also Sarah Buchgras, our Finance Director. All right, no audience participation. Okay, next we have the approval of the minutes from the October 26th Finance Committee meeting. Daisy, any?
I have no question.
No questions? Want to make a motion?
I make a motion to approve.
Mrs. Walker makes a motion. I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, minutes approved. Okay, next we will talk about the Ohio checkbook presentation. I believe that's the two ladies back there. Sarah, you want to get started with it?
Yes, we have Elena Bowers and Becca Armstrong from the Ohio Treasurer's Office to present a proposed City of Twinsburg site on their Ohio checkbook.
Hi,
Take it away.
everybody.
Hi.
My name is Elena, and Sarah mentioned I'm from the Treasurer's Office.
I'm Becca Armstrong, the Northeast Regional Liaison for the State Treasurer's Office.
And I've been working with Sarah over the last couple of months to obtain the data and to have her feel comfortable with the program. I think that she reached out in the spring about joining the program, and we've been back and forth on the data. So today, I'd like to show all of you the data in what we'd like to call the preview mode, which is essentially the same exact data and the platform and the displays as what you'll see on the public interfacing site. And then before we get into that, I'd like to show you an example of an entity that's within your region. So I just chose the Twinsburg Township in Summit County. There are close to, let's see, there's 29 entities currently published in Summit County that are on the Ohio checkbook right now. When I got here, I have my work laptop, but the cord was not working, so he graciously let me use his computer. So I was not able to show you the full listing, but I can verbally tell you the listing of those entities that are published in Summit County if you would like to know those. But I figured just showing you an updated site, because Twinsburg Township does update on a quarterly basis, so they're actually up to date through October. So before we get into that, I wanted to show you the main site. So a little background on me. I've been with the Ohio Treasurer's Office since 2018. So I joined in the former administration, and I've been working on the Ohio checkbook program since 2019. So during that time, it was sort of, the program was managed very, very well. We launched it in 2015, 2016 time. And during that time, the state checkbook was in existence, and our office was managing the data for that and handling the program as well. We turned to wanting to bring on local governments to the checkbook. And so that was a huge process and program because none of that existed ever before. So basically from 2015 until now, we've been working with local governments across the state to join the program. It's 100% voluntary, it's 100% free, and we're really proud of it. And right now we've got close to about 950 local governments that are on the checkbook, which is incredible. That consists of counties, cities, townships, villages, libraries, water districts, smaller districts. And so we're just really proud of the program and being able to partner with these local governments that want to be part of the transparency platform. I was really impressed with your website because the checkbook itself is truly just a way to display payment reports, transaction reports. We don't display revenues, we don't display budgets, tax information, that type of thing. It's truly just a full listing of all the payment reports. So your website right now already has a lot of information, which is awesome. And I've seen it, a lot of cities and counties do the same thing where they'll put their they'll put their monthly budgets on their website, or their expenditure lists are on their website. So you're already way ahead of that, which is fantastic. So this is sort of that next step to get you onto the checkbook platform. Okay. Okay. So the Ohio Checkbook website, we launched the new Ohio Checkbook website in June of 2020. Formerly, we were using a third party called OpenGov to host all the local government and schools on our website. And then the state checkbook and the salaries, so that would be state salaries, teacher salaries, was a completely different portal. So when we launched the new checkbook in June of 2020, we decided to bring everything in-house because we were already getting the data from the Office of Budget Management and then DAS as well. So it just made sense to us that over the years we were able to get comfortable, understand the program, understand the process, and we had the technology, the resources. We brought everything in-house. So what you're looking at right now is the ohiocheckbook.gov website that has the state expenses, the state budgets, the state salaries, the teacher salaries, pension fund expenses, and then obviously the local government and schools, which is where hopefully your site will be housed if you do decide to move forward with publishing. I won't get into the other different portals, but I just wanted to at least show you this since this is my program and I have to advocate for it. But there's a lot of awesome information that you can see how the state's spending their money, their budget, their expenses. Salaries, I want to bring a point to this because local government salaries are listed here. State salaries and teacher salaries are constantly updated from our system and then the Ohio Department of Education. These two portals are visited a lot. A lot of people want to see what educators are making, the same with state employees. But local government salaries, that data file is a separate file. So even though when I show you the City of Twinsburg site, you're going to see the payroll information and you're going to see the payroll expense, but you won't see names. If you did want to provide salary names with employees associated with it, that would be a different file and it would be located here. Only Mahoney County has given us their data file for fiscal year 2020, so that sort of speaks volumes that some entities are kind of wanting to keep that private. Obviously, all that information is obtained by public record request if it needed to be so, but I at least just wanted to bring that to your attention just as we move forward with the presentation that the salaries are housed here. And then local government schools are here. All the different types of local governments are listed here. Okay. So do you want me to run over the list of the entities that are published in Summit County?
If you want to list off the cities in Summit County.
Cities, okay.
Just so.
Yeah, I can sort it. There's, like I said, there's 29, but let me just sort it by city. Okay. So City of Akron, City of Barberton, City of Cuyahoga Falls, City of Greene, City of Hudson, City of Macedonia, City of Monroe Falls, City of New Franklin, City of Norton, City of Stowe, and City of Talmadge are all the cities currently published on the checkbook. And I should also point out that since we launched this, this was such a big project in the Treasurer's Office, and we had a huge team of checkbook public affairs liaisons. And a lot of these entities onboarded with our program at the beginning, but due to some staff turnover or resources or accounting systems, it kind of took some time for these entities to get used to the process, but we always assisted them in the way. But a lot of these entities don't update on a frequent basis. So what I found is that most of these update every fiscal year. A lot of schools like to send their data files on a monthly basis. It's a lot easy for them to kind of close out the month and submit it through our FTP process because they're on a state uniform accounting system and it's very simple. So Sarah's provided your fiscal year of 2020 file, and then moving forward, if you do decide to publish, obviously it would be, you could do it on a quarterly basis or every fiscal year. So a lot of these entities, yes, they're on the checkbook. Have they updated? It's sort of just a mixed bag of that, but the fact that they joined and that they have data out there obviously is a positive thing. So do you want me to still show Twinsburg Township, or do you want me to show a city out of that list on the checkbook?
You could go over the township, that's fine.
Okay, wonderful. So I think Akron updates every quarter too.
Still show Twinsburg Township, or do you want to show a city?
Any questions so far on the main page? Any state expenses you want to look at? State salaries you want to look at? Teacher salaries?
Is the Ohio State football coach state employee?
That's a good question.
I think he is.
I think he is.
Yes.
I'm curious what he makes.
Well, I actually, so higher education, higher education is actually, is also voluntary. So if we were to go back to the salary page, that little portal that said higher education, when we launched this, we had a ton of local governments send us their salary file. I think it was, close to 100, and then it sort of teetered off a little bit. So I think that Ohio State, if they were to send their salary, it would be, I don't think it would be under the state salaries. I think it would be its own entity file. Because higher education, they can send us, they have their own platform for that if they want to send their data. We haven't received it in a while. We also haven't done a lot of outreach towards that. I just think that during the time of this launch, we were able to kind of decipher between the different local governments and small entities. And so that was an option. Like Miami University used to be on the checkbook at one time. You could see their expenses, but it's been years since, we felt the need to reach out to them and say, hey, but yeah, I would be interested in that too.
So my question is, so the city of Twinsburg does it. Our school board would have to also want to join in if they wanted to. It would be optional for them.
The school district?
The school district, yes.
School district. It would be optional for them, yes.
Okay. So, because I have a little colleague right here that's a teacher there and loves the salary.
Yes.
I'm sure Twinsburg's on. I bet they're on.
They think they're on it?
Twinsburg City Schools?
Twinsburg City Schools.
I would bet.
They are?
Yeah, they're pretty happy to.
And no, the Ohio State football coach is not, his salary is not listed on here, but there are other head coaches for different universities listed.
Let's see. I'm looking to see if Twinsburg, what is the district name? Twinsburg City School District?
Yes.
They're not on the checkbook.
They're not on the check.
They're not on the checkbook, yeah.
They're not? Oh, that's surprising.
The teacher
I think you're the new advocate.
Yeah. They're easy to get.
But the teacher salaries, he said, they are on there, so that's possible to do that?
Yes, so the teacher salary file that we publish on the checkbook is managed by our office, but the file itself comes from the Ohio Department of Education. So I don't like to use the word mandate because I don't exactly know the back end side of that, but the state employees and the teacher salaries or higher education salaries, school salaries, those are constantly updated on the checkbook. So you can see teacher, really any employee at any type of school or district across the state, but the actual school expenses is a different office, different file, different process. So our office really is only technically in charge of local government and schools outreach and managing of the data. We don't ever touch the salary data for state or teachers. We also don't do anything with the state expense or budget data. We used to, but when we launched in June 2020, when we merged with the two other agencies that manage it, they just sort of take care of that. We're really actually in charge of like the visuals and the fun stuff of it. They just handle the data. So, and we actually added a new feature to the salary portal where you can search employees. So that was something that was newly added. So we're doing updates to the checkbook. We did sort of a launch, not a soft launch, but we started working on the new checkbook in March of 2020, like a day after we all got sent home to work from home. And so it was like the perfect thing to focus on because we launched it in June. So like during that time, I just remember being like home and testing things and looking at things and colors and visuals and making sure everything worked because we had so many entities on the former platform that we had to transfer over to the new platform and just to make sure everything worked, and it did. It was perfect. So we're still kind of, looking at recommendations. I mean, I do presentations constantly, and a lot of entities will make suggestions or have questions. I'd say the biggest one is, why is revenue not shown? And that's because it would be actually a completely different checkbook. It's a different file, different platform. So it's a good project. It's been really great to be part of it for over the years and just see the changes to it. So, but yeah, City of Akron actually, they updated, so their fiscal year, so they're updated through January of 2020. So I won't go into depth of their expenses, but I just wanted you to see on the main checkbook page, so this is the ohiocheckbook.gov website, URL, main checkbook page. I selected cities. I went to City of Akron. This is their page. You'll see that the default view, or the bird's eye view, is an aggregated view of the spending over the fiscal years. And then it's broken down by fund. So the colors you see, which hopefully are up there, yep, are the top funds that are being spent over the years. That's what the colors represent. So the default view is just showing the different fiscal years, and then on the left-hand side you can get more specific, which I will get more specific on the City of Twinsburg site so that you can actually see the data. But I'm going to cross over to our admin portal, which has the City of Twinsburg here, and I just wanted you to see the comparison of test mode, publish mode, same thing. Akron obviously has been part of the program for a very long time. They have many more fiscal years, but Sarah and I worked with fiscal year 2020, so this is what you're seeing right here. Okay, so like I said, default view is always going to show the most recent fiscal years that are lined up. It's always going to show the last 5 fiscal years. We have some entities that have recently joined that wanted to go as far back as 2014, 2015, and that's completely fine. You can go back as far as you want, but our default view is only going to show the 5 fiscal years on the page. So Sarah provided the fiscal year 2020. That's what you'll see here. That's why the bar is so large. But moving forward, if you do decide to publish an update and you update on a quarterly basis, it'll start going on a more, you can break it down by quarter, you can break it down by month as well. But the default view is the top fiscal year. And then the amount up here is the total amount spent in that fiscal year. And then these are the top funds that you'll see. That's what the colors represent. The fund other is actually the other funds that are clumped into that. That's usually payroll and other funds. Payroll obviously is a huge fund, or a huge expense. Golf course, general bond retirement, and this is always general. The general fund obviously has a lot of departments that are being pulled from it. And then, like I said, this is just a visual of expenses and payments made in one fiscal year. The file itself is pulled from the accounting system, and it's an Excel file, so it's literally the rows of the transactions. So the file itself will have a ton of information on it, but essentially the only data points that are shown on the checkbook are the funds, the departments, the objects, the payee, and then the date range, and then obviously the amount. So that's what you're going to be seeing really on every single checkbook. Some accounting systems don't have funds, they don't have account codes, but we've seen close to 15 different accounting systems over the years, and it's really just a wide range of it, but at the end of the day, it's really just what transactions are being pulled from what fund and how are they organized in that way. So we organize it in the way that it would be the most similar to across the board. So on the left-hand side, you'll see the filters, so you can select the date. So if there was different fiscal years and you just wanted to see expenses from that fiscal year, you would choose that year. This is just showing us the range. So January 2020 to December 2020, that's one fiscal year, obviously. And then coming down, you'll see the fund, the departments, and the object. So City of Twinsburg uses an accounting system that has all 3 of those. They have the fund codes, department codes, and the object codes, and their descriptions. So transactions are being pulled from all those 3 codes. And then at the bottom, you'll have the payee. So you can click into these and see the full listing of all the funds for that fiscal year and their associated number. It's not really important to anybody that doesn't understand government fund accounting, but our system has to be able to map the name to the code, so the code is always shown there. Same with department, you'll see all the department names. Objects are what I like to call the most specific part of the transaction. A lot of accounting systems have a column for description or memo, where you'll put in a little tidbit of, this was made for this or this reason. That is never shown on the checkbook of kind of why a transaction was made. We get a lot of questions about that of, okay, I see that my entity spent this at this, but why? Well, you'd have to contact them for that. We really don't get that detailed. We take that part out because sometimes entities will use that little memo and put a sensitive name. Schools will put names there. So they sometimes put social security numbers in there. So our system, number one, will take every single data file and go through it in it's called Digital Guardian, and it will flag any type of names or social security numbers, credit card numbers, and make sure that we're aware of it. But number two is I don't upload those columns to begin with, so nothing will ever show up on the checkbook just in case you were, worried about that. I usually bring that up more with schools because schools definitely do that. But the object description is really where you're going to see the most specific association to a transaction. And then at the bottom, you'll see the list of all the payees. You can search for the payees at this little box down there, hopefully it's showing up. And then this is just listed in alphabetical order. If you see names there, that's usually just reimbursements to employees or that type of thing. I brought that up because it's not payroll names, as I mentioned. Payroll would be a different file. Any questions so far before I show you how to pull up a transaction? Okay, all right. So we currently are working on a way to pull all the transactions into one display. We're not able to just go to the checkbook and see a full listing of all the transactions from highest to lowest, alphabetical, whatever way you can sort it. We're working on that. We're also, this is, like I said, this is our test mode. Below this name right here, we're going to probably be putting in a Google style search bar. So an entity could, or someone from the entity could go in there and search just a payee name or a vendor name or an employee name and see what would pop up from. It would pull that name and then show everything else instead of having to kind of click the fund or click the department. Everybody loves the Google style search bar, so we're working on that just because that was a feature on the former checkbook and it was used heavily. So that will probably be there eventually. I just wanted to bring that to your attention just so that that's sort of a way to kind of see more detail. But if you do want to see a transaction, you'll have to kind of click around on the left-hand side. So what I was going to do is go to, I'm going to call on some people, so hopefully you're paying attention. Daisy, hopefully you can see the list. Can you pick a fund out of this?
I can't see that.
You can't see that? Oh, shoot. Okay.
Yeah, how about fire pension?
Fire pension. Okay. I was going to say police fire pension.
I'm wearing my glasses too.
I do.
All right, fire pension. So I've deselected all the funds. I'm choosing fire pension, and I'm going to hit apply. So that is going to change the graph to just showing fire pension. And I didn't know you couldn't see, so that says fire pension on it, and then it also shows the amount below it. So it's basically like frozen all the other funds out, and it's just going to display the fire pension. And then under the department, it'll freeze all the departments that are pulled from the fire pension fund. So it's actually already done that. There's only one department pulled from the fire pension, and it's the fire department code 51. So then we can go down and we can select an object, and there's two different objects. There's county fees and charges and then fire pension. And then I'm going to actually not select one of those. I just like to see the payees. So the payees out of those are NA, which I'm going to assume are names, possibly.
Probably.
Yeah, and I would say 90% of entities will take away employee names and put NA. And then the other payees are the Police Environment's Pension Fund and then the Summit County Fiscal Office. So that's kind of how you can see how it's broken down. I like to think of the transaction sort of like a tree where fund is at the top, the branch is a department, object. It's kind of getting more specific. That wasn't a really fun one. I like to kind of see how like things are like paid to. So we're gonna refresh that and do another one. I'm not gonna go into the pension stuff. I do stuff with pensions. I try to understand them a lot more, but I wanted to actually show you a transaction to a vendor from a different fund because I think that would be. All right, hold on one second. Okay. All right.
As you're going through this, when you roll your cursor over on the right-hand side there, and a number pops up, is that the fund balance? Is that a snapshot into, like, what is that, like, that number there?
This one? Can you see that it says general fund?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the 100, are you asking about the 100?
No, the amount there. So is that a snapshot in time? Is that, like, what is that 21 million and change, whatever it is?
That is the amount of money paid from the general fund.
Paid out, okay.
Paid out of the general fund in fiscal year 2020.
Thank you.
Yep. And general fund, I would say for most entities is the largest being paid out. Okay, so I'm going to choose the golf course fund. And then that's going to freeze all the other funds out. So in 2020, the golf course fund,
$11 billion.
$7 million. I have some questions about that.
It's because we issued a bond. It's because we issued a bond.
Yeah. All right, so golf course fund, I chose that fund. This time it didn't freeze out the other departments. There's actually general clubhouse department, golf banquet center department, golf clubhouse department, golf maintenance department, and golf restaurant department, all different departments being pulled from the golf course fund. That makes complete sense. So I'm going to choose one of them. I'm just going to do golf clubhouse, unless someone else would like to choose one.
Clubhouse is good.
Clubhouse, okay.
Wastewater.
And then objects, tons of objects there, if you can see those. I'm just going to, I'm going to just leave them and then show the payees. So this is where you can see who the payees are, and there's tons of them. I mean, there's Callaway Golf, Amazon, Bridgestone Golf Incorporated. If there's any payees that you can think of, Sarah, that you'd like me to click, because then I'd like to show the transactions and how it's kind of displayed.
Callaway is good. That's where he buys this.
Okay, so Callaway Golf?
Sure.
Okay, I'm gonna apply to that. So I chose golf course fund, golf clubhouse department, and then the object, so the most specific line item part of that is actually the merchandise for resale. So that sort of ties into the Callaway Golf, and then obviously payee is Callaway Golf. So that is going to lock in a transaction. To show the actual transactions, to see the amounts and the dates, you don't have to get that specific, but you at least have to choose a fund or a department or an object, and then you can see the transactions pulled from that. But because we got very specific, this maroon color is going to show that transaction. So in fiscal year 2020, from the golf course fund, from the golf clubhouse department, they were paying Callaway Golf $10,000. So if I click onto that in the bar graph at the bottom, it's going to generate a transaction summary. I know that's so small, but this is where you can click into the amounts and see, sort of in like the check mode, where you can see when the amount was paid, how many times it was paid. So because it was a large amount of money, you know it's going to be multiple transactions, and I don't know if you can see that, but you'll see here the transaction dates are broken down over time, the amounts are broken over time. This is basically the time that you can see the trend as well, and how many transactions as well. So that's about as specific as anybody in the community can see transactions on the checkbook. That's as deep as you can go. I want to bring up a story because I always talk about this, and I swear I'm almost done. I know government fund accounting is the last thing you want to do on the Tuesday before Thanksgiving break, but so there was an entity, I think it was up north, and they gave us their data file in an Excel format, and they had a large amount of money being paid towards honey baked ham. Do you know the story?
It's not from up here, I can tell you that.
Okay, it was, okay. I don't know which entity it was. If I did, I don't think I'd say it. I think it was probably a village or a township. They were very small. And I just, I wasn't part of this. It was my former employee, and they had asked a question about that transaction. And so they called, and I don't think it was everybody in the community. I think it was all the employees in the community, but they had bought everybody a Christmas ham, and that was one of their transactions. And obviously that's on the checkbook, it's on their page, that's how they decided to spend their money. I don't know the justification behind it. I think it's fantastic that they spent their money on that. I think it was probably giving every employee a Christmas ham, but for me just to look at that, obviously I had questions, but that memo line of Christmas ham for employees is not on the checkbook, obviously. So if you just go to that and you're thinking like, wow, they spent a lot of money at Honey Baked Ham, what's the story behind that? Well, you'd have to contact the entity like I did. So I bring that up just because there is a lot of information on the checkbook. You're being completely transparent about the trends, the amounts, you're being honest. I think it's fantastic for any entity to join. But there also is sort of the side of it where it doesn't tell the full story, which I think is something that I'd like to bring up, that you're aware that it doesn't show the full story of why decisions are made, why transactions are made. But at the end of the day, you're being honest, you're being transparent, and this is a fantastic tool that our office offers those around Ohio. Every entity has their own unique URL, so if you do decide to publish moving forward on the transparency page with the other financial reports or however you want to organize it, you can put the link into that. It'll obviously direct you to this page, and it's just another way that you can be transparent, which you already are, which is fantastic. Other thing I'd like to mention too is our office can provide a press release announcing that the City of Twinsburg has joined the checkbook. We can obtain a quote from a representative in your office to put in the press release, and then we can send you the link. You can put it on your social media, you can put it on your page, you can do whatever you want with it. But the day that you do decide to go live unpublished, that's the day that the press release will go out as well. So any other questions, any other transactions you'd like to see, or?
So we can discuss probably at the next Finance Committee meeting, because we have a lot to get through tonight, whether we want to go ahead and participate in the program, and also how often we would want to update it. I would probably suggest, if we do want to move forward with the program, that we would do each fiscal year, because I would want to really close out the books and make sure those are the numbers before we publish something like that online, just because of the level of detail that it does go into. But we can make the decision on if we want to participate probably next month at Finance. But any other questions for Elena and Monica?
Thank you. This is awesome.
Yeah, that was a good presentation. Thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'm going to be back next month to do another one, right? Like, no. I was supposed to come in October, but
Yeah.
I had double jaw surgery in September, and I thought that I would be able to come in October, and if I walked in that door, you would kick me out. You would be like, I could barely talk. Yeah, I'm still a little numb, so I feel like I'm like drooling, which thank God you're far away. But I know I know you're traveling a lot, but I used to do this all the time. We'd go in person, we'd sit at the computer and get their data, and with COVID, just virtually, it's so easy and it's fantastic, but it's great that I got to drive up here and be part of this, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, she drove up from Columbus.
That's another thing, yeah. Add that there, yeah. Put the pressure on there. No, but yeah, if you have any questions, Sarah has my email, and I know we'll be in touch, so.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Do you need to log out of anything, or?
Yeah, I'm sure I got my admin.
Yeah, Mark will put the presentation up here in just a minute. He's just got to flip over the laptop there. Thank you so much. Thank you. All right, so next we have the discussion on the 2022 temporary appropriations. We've got the legislation on first reading tonight. We will do 3 readings and then on the...
Thank you. Have a good one.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you.
On the third reading, we would have to pass on emergency so that we would have the budget in place for January 1st. So first up, I wanted to go over some highlights of the general fund. Well, we have our packets. We have. I just want. There we go. Thank you, Mark. So for 2022 temporary appropriations, the general fund is balanced. So that is a very good thing. In total, the budget is technically a deficit spend of $928,000, but the reason for that is because we are going to be using those reserve balances that we built up in the American Rescue Plan Fund from that money that came in this year. And then for the road program, we're dipping into some reserves to do our bigger road program next year. So it's not necessarily a bad thing that we're using money that we have built up over the years, especially with the American Rescue Plan money. So the general fund budget from 2021 has been cut just over 4%. The reason that we were able to reduce general fund budget is because of mostly that police and fire levy fund, because that takes some of the pressure off of the general fund to support police and fire pensions and police and fire safety capital needs. So that property tax really helps us to reduce that pressure on the general fund. And then we also were able to reduce our estimated healthcare costs. We did move to a self-insured status this year. So we got some estimates from Oswald, our insurance broker, on what healthcare might look like for next year. We haven't yet set up our internal service fund if we want to do that, to sort of set aside savings for health insurance costs when we do run into a bad year, but we will talk about that next year and if we want to get that set up and going. On the revenue side of things, the biggest number that we have to estimate in the general fund is income tax revenues. So it's a little bit of an odd year to try to estimate because of the work from home status that we have been talking about all throughout the pandemic, and who is going to be returning to work in the offices in the city of Twinsburg, because we are not going to get income taxes just based on where your place of work was pre-pandemic. You're going to start paying where you're working, which might be out of your house. So what I did was I took our 2019 collections and I said, okay, pre-pandemic, here's how much money was coming in. If 10% of our folks stay working from home, that translates into a 3% reduction in collections in 2022, which that's from Regional Income Tax Agency gave us those numbers back in the spring. And then I also put in, just to be very conservative, a 0% estimated increase in collections just based on wage increases, which we normally would build in some sort of increase, and certainly wages have gone up. You've seen the signs on every place that's hiring. People just keep increasing the wages to try to get people to come work. So I'm hoping that this is a fairly conservative number, but I do want to put caution out there that I just don't have enough data to really have a firm backing on that number just yet. But that's one of the reasons that we're doing a temporary appropriations, is because I want to get those January, February income tax collections in, so that when we bring the permanent budget in March, we have a better idea of, what those income tax estimates might look like.
Okay, so that basically translates to 3% below 2019.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. With no wage inflation.
Right.
Yeah. So any questions there? Okay. So these next two pie charts you see each year, this is where we go over what we're spending our general fund money on. So it's about the same as last year and the year before. We run at about 60% of our general fund spending goes to pay for our employees. So that's salaries and wages, health care for all our general fund departments. That's your police officers, your firefighters, your service workers, everybody that is providing service to the residents. Again, comparable to previous years, just a little over 20% goes into operating expenses, all the costs of running those departments in the general fund. And then we run about 3%, again, very comparable to previous years on our administrative costs. And then the next one is the other side where we sort of just run the same numbers a different way, and we show, as opposed to, people and operating and that, it's more by department level. So if you combine those bigger two categories, we spend about 60% of our general fund budget on safety and service. So the service department, police and fire is the bulk of where we spend our general fund dollars on. Then we've got 14% in administrative costs that covers all of those departments that supports police fire service out of general fund. So any questions there? Yes, Stacy.
What is the enterprise fund support, 1%?
Enterprise fund support, 1%, is what we use to support the golf course and fitness center funds. And we will go over those two funds later on in the presentation.
Just a question on the bottom.
Sure.
It said it's reduced by 4% compared to 2021. Why is that?
That the slide a couple slides ago that we talked about, the support that we get from the police and fire levy property taxes coming in, we were able to reduce the subsidy that has to go to police and fire pensions and capital, and then also the health care costs being able to be reduced are the two main components of that reduction.
Which are completely separate funds from the general fund. So in the past, we would have to pull from general fund dollars to support those. We now have a levy helping support them.
Okay. So we'll go through some of the other major funds. First up, our road program, we do have a little over $4.2 million scheduled for our infrastructure program for 2022. We have, I think there's 7 different funds that we are pulling from to be able to run that program. And again, that's some of the reserve balances that we're using because we had some money built up in Muni Motor and State Highway that we're able to use those funds on some of the projects that we have slated for next year. I do have Amy Moore, our engineer, here to just real briefly discuss some pricing increases that we're seeing and some possible adjustments that we might have to make to our infrastructure program. She'll get into detail about Dorridge in specific, I think, at caucus tonight, but we did want to just bring to your attention that we're seeing some significant differences in pricing.
Good evening. Well, my quick brief thing on Dorridge is basically we came in 30% higher than what the estimate was. In reviewing a lot of those things, I'm looking at our bids as we move forward. And so we have budgeted numbers that we used. For instance, last year when we did our asphalt, we awarded asphalt for resurfacing at $138 a cubic yard. All 3 bidders on this Dorridge had asphalt for resurfacing Dorridge Drive, and they were all over $200 a cubic yard. Dorridge has a lot of other issues, but looking at our main project, which are our road programs and everything else, we're going to have to look at increasing or absorbing that. So I have some recommendations on, we have money in Dorridge where pipe has gone through the roof, sort of like wood did last year. And the piping has gone up 3 to 4 times more expensive than it was. I was amazed at how much it is to put 12-inch pipe. So when looking at it, there is money in the Dorridge project for road, portion was road, portion was sewer, portion was water, et cetera. So the question is how much these can absorb the increased costs once we start the bidding process. So there may be a way as we start moving out the bids. Basically, we'll go through, we'll look at those pricings, we'll call suppliers a little bit more, let you know what we're going out with our estimate as on those projects, and kind of move through and see as we go through and do a public works meeting. But we do anticipate, based on what we're seeing, it's not transitory, it's probably a little bit longer term. But in 2008, we had asphalt prices over $200 a cubic yard, and like I said, they went down to $138. So I think there's flexibility for things coming down. I just don't know how fast, and it's never going to come back down to where it was before. So it's where it hits median. Oakwood, we finished that job at $810,000 2 years ago, and now we're talking $2 million, and we're talking about a roadway length. There's more utilities, but not very much more of length in terms of what we're doing out there. So I'll let you go to your meeting and have your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amy.
Yeah, so as she mentioned, I think they're going to try to do a public works meeting probably January to continue discussing the pricing differences and what changes we may need to make to our infrastructure plans for 2022.
That makes sense, yeah. It's a good plan.
Yeah, I just think that when we're seeing price increases like that, we have to start thinking about, is this the best time to use the dollars for which projects?
Amy, are there any increases in grant money out there, or opportunities for grants, or is that increasing along at all with it?
In terms of different money coming out, there's the infrastructure bill that's still kind of working its way, and where that money is. If you look at a lot of the push behind the infrastructure bill, it has a lot of equity built in. I know there's certain, like when you talk about water lines, you're going to be talking about lead water lines. So there's certain things, where we fall on that equity scale, because even when we compete for Ohio Public Works money, we lose points just based on that we're a more prosperous community than other communities. So I don't know
Where we'll fall.
how that's all going to wash out, and it still might be a little more time before they actually roll more of that out.
Amy's very good about getting every dollar that she can to match our dollars. So she's always out there watching for opportunities. Okay, next up, Police and Fire Levy Fund. So as we talked a little bit about before, we have the 2.4 mills that was passed this year. We'll start getting collections from that next year, which is going to generate about $1.7 million. So in prior years, the general fund had to support police and fire pensions as well as safety capital needs. So now those two items will be supported by that property tax. The way that we have it budgeted for 2022 between capital and pensions is that they will be fully supported by the property tax, and we do have a small reserve balance that we hope to have at the end of the year. Very small, because we have a little bit of little bigger capital items for next year for police and fire, but we do want to try to start building a reserve balance in that fund, at least a little at a time.
That'd be great.
Okay. And general bond retirement fund. So this is a fund that gets supported as well by the general fund. So when we have debt service that falls off, it helps our general fund as well. In 2021, we are paying off our 2011 bonds. So that caused a almost 30% reduction in our budgeted debt service for next year, which is good news. And then in 2022, we will pay off our Darrow Road land acquisition bond. We have our last payment on that, so I expect our general bond retirement fund budget to drop again when we do our 2023 budget. So when we get into the 2023 budget year, we are looking at our interest-free OPWC loans, and then the Gleneagles clubhouse payment is what we will have left there. So our debt service, even though we do have that clubhouse bound out there, our debt service payments is actually coming down over the next couple years. Okay, so up next we have our enterprise funds. Starting off with sewer revenue, wastewater treatment plant. So the sewer revenue fund, we continue to be self-sustaining there, which is great. The sewer revenues bring in enough money to cover the operations of the plant. That being said, we do have very large plant upgrades and maintenance projects that are coming up starting in 2023 with a $2.6 million investment anticipated. You can see the list of items that we have slated for 2023 to come out of the sewer fund. When we get into our departmental budgets, when we're looking at the permanent budget and we meet with the departments individually in January, February, March, Chris Campbell will be able to explain what those things are. They're very large, expensive projects, but he would be the expert to tell you what's going on there. I do think that we had that sewer billing increase a few years ago where it was a very large jump because we had not looked at sewer fees in a very long time. I don't want us to have to go through that again, so I think over the next couple years we can start, discussing what we want to do about sewer fees, going forward, if we want to do some sort of small incremental change, every other year or something like that. But I do think we have to start having those discussions so that we don't have a 40% jump in 5 years. I don't want to do that again. So that's just something.
Fight that fight again.
Yeah, I think it's better if we can get a plan in place for small incremental change. Yeah, over time.
Didn't we talk about doing something automatic?
We had talked about
we had
doing
that
something
discussion.
automatic. I think when we did the increase, it was such a large jump at the time that we didn't want to put that in place just yet. But I think we have to start those discussions next year, especially.
What year did we put that in, 2019 or 2020?
I think it went into effect in 2019, the increase.
Okay. So,
I think so too.
I think it was in 2019 that
so
we
it'd be 2019,
bumped it.
2021.
Yeah.
It'd be at least 4 or 5 years
Yeah.
from that.
Wow.
Yeah. And to be fair, the increase, even though it was a large increase, we are still one of the most competitive pricing for, wastewater treatment plant charges. And then also, we do have a new wastewater treatment plant superintendent, Nate Zieg, started this week, so welcome to him.
How do you say the last name?
Zieg,
Zeke?
I believe.
Great.
Okay, Gleneagles Golf Course. So, the first question everyone always has is, what's the subsidy going to look like for 2022? Right now, I'm looking at just under $150,000 subsidy. Mostly that is to cover the cost of their capital budget expenses that were approved through Capital Improvement Board and Finance Committee. They've got a little over $170,000 of capital expenses. Hopefully on the operating side of things, they are about break even, and then the subsidy will cover those capital expenses. The clubhouse bond is paid out of that general bond payment fund, so that is separate. We don't include that under the golf course. Our operating revenue estimates, it's just based on year-to-date where we're at on the golf course income. So once we do our year-end close and we see where the numbers shook out, we will adjust those as needed. Same thing on the expense side. It's really difficult to say how well the course did until we truly get through the end of the year and close the books out, because in December, we're not bringing any money in, but we're still spending money. We've got people working and, we're purchasing things. So I hate to say the total of the golf course success this year until we close out the books in January.
So,
Yeah.
how many seasonal people do we have working at the golf course?
I think on the pro shop side, he usually does about 15, and then I think on the maintenance side, there's maybe a dozen seasonals. So maybe 25 to 30 seasonals out there during golf season, I think. I'd have to go back and look. But yeah, we had to do a pretty large adjustment to our seasonal wage rate to be able to fill our open positions this year. So that's one of the things that you'll actually see on our year-end appropriation amendment is some salary wage money for the golf course.
And when do they start and when do they end? Do they start like when the golfers come out, April, May?
I think they start, the course is open usually in April, so I think March, early April, the seasonals come on, and they keep them as long as they can. I think we still have a few seasonals out there now. Yeah.
So it depends on seasonal. We get a lot of high school and college
Yeah.
kids, so we may not get them until May, end of May, middle of May.
Yeah.
Same as the service department.
They try to get them as soon as the course opens, and they try to keep them until the course closes. And the course is still open now, so they keep them as long as they can. Okay, any questions on golf course? Okay, so on the fitness center side of things, our budgeted subsidy is just under $180,000. That includes capital budget expenses out of the fitness center fund of just under $160,000. They are actually doing a big marketing plan for the fitness center and tying it in with all kinds of good stuff to try to revitalize, interest in the fitness center. And, the water park did great this year and really helped support the fitness center. So we're excited to hear from Jen and her team on their plans for 2022 operations out there. And then the big thing on the fitness center that we've been talking about for a long time is the roof and the pool packs. Where we're at with that right now is I just had a meeting with Amy and Chris and Jen last week, where we discussed, contracting out the design of the roof to see what we actually need to do there and if the roof is going to support the pool packs that they need to replace soon in order to keep that indoor pool open. So we'll have more information to you as those design options progress.
What is soon in that context? Is that
So we
a year? Is that 6 months?
We got a proposal from one of the design companies that we work with, and it was a little more, I think, than we were hoping to spend to look at the roof. So we have gone back to ask them if we can do maybe a piece of what they were looking at doing, and then we do some of it in-house. Amy's getting some staff back in her office, and she's going to be able to do some of the work herself. So we're waiting on the re-proposal from one of the design firms.
I guess my question was, when are the pool packs due to be?
Oh, so probably, yeah.
That's what I thought. That's why I was asking. That's what I thought.
Yeah, we do not have them slated for 2022. My guess is 2023.
Thank you.
But we have to make sure we've got our ducks in a row on the funding and how we're gonna pay for it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any questions on the fitness center? Okay. So I just wanted to take a moment and go through what we're looking at for 2022 temporary and permanent appropriations and just how the process works. So we went over the basics tonight, very high level view. We have a finance committee scheduled for December 14th. I don't think we need to start right at 6 o'clock. I think we can go 6:30 depending on what questions I get from you guys that we want to cover at that finance committee meeting. I would ask Finance to vote to recommend to council to pass the budget at that meeting on emergency. And then come January, February, and March Finance Committee meetings, we will have our normal departmental presentations. January we usually do golf and fitness because we've got those numbers closed out, and then February and I think we do service and infrastructure usually in February, and then in March we do safety services. And that's where we get into the real detail of all the departmental budgets, and they make their pitch on why they need the money that they asked for. And then we'll have the 22 permanent appropriations would be on legislation in February, and we would pass that in March. I have to double check because our March Finance Committee meeting and that second council meeting in March is really late. It's not till March 29th, and it's not actually the end of March you have to have the budget in place. It's like 89 or 90 days from the start of the year, so I want to make sure we don't have to pass it on March 15th. So I'll let you guys know. I have to make a couple calls and make sure we're good on that.
Okay.
And then I do still have that 2021 year-end appropriation amendment coming. It will probably be on the 14th is my guess, because I have to do some work to make sure we're covered on all the line items that we need to be covered on. But it will be a net reduction to the budget for 2021. Okay. Any other questions on the 2022 temporary appropriations?
Nope.
Okay.
Move on.
I do have one item under miscellaneous, if there are no comments, questions.
You want to talk about the CERT trailer?
Yeah, that's what I have. Yeah. Okay. So I got a request for a new CERT team trailer. We do not currently have that in the 2021 budget. They have been looking at a new trailer for a while. The current trailer that they have is just not supporting the needs of the CERT team. We do get quite a bit of service from CERT. I had AC Basso send me over a listing of their volunteer time that they provide to the city, and it's over 225 hours of volunteer, and it's for a variety of reasons that I have listed up there on the slide. Their current trailer is owned by the city. I do think they have somebody interested in purchasing it once it, goes out to the public bid process to be able to be sold. And they have requested $15,000 for a new trailer, along with all of the goodies that they would need to put it into use. So if we would want to go forward with that purchase, I could include those funds in that year-end appropriation amendment. Again, it would still be a net reduction to the budget for 2021, even if we put this on to buy them that. So I just wanted to see if Finance Committee was interested in me including that in the year-end appropriations to purchase them that trailer.
Yeah, I would be interested in doing that.
Yeah.
I think it's worthwhile purchase for them.
Okay.
They do a lot of good for us, and I think we should. Daisy?
Yeah. What's the size of this trailer that we're going to get? What's the size of the trailer that we have now?
The size of the trailer that they want to get is bigger. Yeah, I could probably have AC Basso come at the next council meeting and tell you.
Probably 17-foot trailer we have.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that.
Bigger, and it's one that I believe was repurposed and re-outfitted for CERT. When CERT first started, and I think the amount of work that they do and the tasks they perform in all of our events has just been really beyond any of the expectations that any of us had when CERT was formed. So I absolutely would support outfitting them, because they are a mobile emergency response team that can handle a lot of things. We want to make sure they're equipped properly.
How many volunteers are there?
Probably 25, I would think, that are been through the program.
I think they might be up over 30 now.
So they're very quiet. I'm just trying to picture the group of them together.
Yeah. There's
Yeah,
quite a
they
few.
were out patrolling during trick or treat, and yeah, they're awesome.
And then
Yeah.
if we have someone lost in the woods, they'll
Yeah.
mobilize quickly.
Yeah. Searches. Yeah.
Yeah, I would absolutely support that. I'm not on finance, but I would absolutely support that.
Yeah, I think you guys okay with that as well? Yeah.
Okay, I'll include that in the year-end appropriation amendment. We have a little bit of time left. Do we want to go back and talk about whether we want to participate in the Ohio checkbook? And then we could also talk about Dorridge if we wanted to as well.
Yeah, well, what's your thoughts? What do you think? With
On
the
which-
checkbook?
Did you
And Mayor, what do you
approach
think?
them, or did they approach you?
The Ohio Treasurer's Office comes in and checks in probably once or twice a year to see if we want to participate. I had other major projects that I wanted to get done in the finance department and updating that I wanted to do on some of our reporting before I looked into this. And we also had to do some somewhat big updates to our accounting software to make sure that we could get them the data into something that would actually be useful. So it was just a matter of having the time to be able to put the data file together. But I do think most of the cities in Summit County are participating in it. So we're one of the last holdouts not participating in the program.
Ted, what do you think? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, I mean, I have no problem with participating. I think, as mentioned by the representative, it's the additional information that the resident doesn't get if they're searching through and just randomly pulling transactions and other things. But, I mean, I think we do a good job, like you mentioned, with our website and the information we get out publicly anyway. And I mean, I'm kind of indifferent. I mean, we've had a couple of people pressure us to do it, but with 19,000 residents, I have received a ton of phone calls asking us to be part of it. But again, it's one of those, I mean, we've got nothing to hide, so I have no issue putting information out there.
I mean,
Different.
it's like a two-edged sword, I think. though.
Yeah.
I mean, because, when some of the public look at it and what they see, if they're going to use it against us, like they do a lot of things. So, it's going to generate those kind of calls and that kind of, headache-type calls that you're probably going to deal with a lot.
Right.
By the same token, I mean, it's a good piece, I guess, to put out there and let everybody see. So, I mean,
Is there a charge associated with it?
There's no charge associated with it. It's a free program to participate in, and it's totally voluntary. As Elena mentioned, which was kind of her to say, we are very transparent. We have a ton of information out there. We put a lot of reports out every month that, some other government agencies don't do. So we do have a lot of information out there. This is another piece of the puzzle, but it is not a complete picture of the city. Like she mentioned, there's no revenues on there. And, when you look into the expenses, okay, we spent $10,000 at Callaway, but there's, why did we spend that? Well, okay, we're purchasing items to put in the pro shop to sell. But you'd still have to make a phone call to get that.
Daisy, what do you think?
Well, I remember when I was campaigning and Karen, she was the finance director at the time, and she supported the auto check.
Okay.
And we talked about it, and then she left.
Greg, Maureen, what do you guys think?
So I'm for it.
Yeah, I see no, I mean, again, the data's there. It's not, it's already there. I don't want to add any work to your workload. It sounds like, if I heard you correctly, you were thinking about maybe if we were to move forward with this, we would go on an annual schedule.
I'd like to at least start off on an annual schedule. We built the data file for them for 2020, so we have 1 year that would be out there to get us started. And then when we close out the 2021 books and we're totally done with that, I would run the data file for 2021 and send that out there. So we'd have 2 years out there within the first quarter of 2022.
With the exception of the potential phone calls that it might generate to you, right, asking for details. Is there much additional work in terms of putting that data file together for you and your staff?
No, now that we have it built,
okay,
that was where the work came in, was to do the work to be able
no, I mean,
to.
I wouldn't have a problem.
Is there potential for you to have to do less work? Because now will it be necessary for you to, you're now providing all this information on the city website. Would you have to continue doing that if we have this checkbook?
Probably not. The folks that request specific public records, I think, are always going to request those public records, and everything that we put into that data file would be something that someone could request anyway.
Right.
We're not putting anything out there that wouldn't be, issued if somebody requested the information. So I don't think it would, I don't think that it would reduce public records requests and work on that kind of stuff, no.
Unfortunately, we can't just say, hey, go to this website.
That's what I would tell them.
Yeah, if somebody requests a report,
it's
we're
right
still
there.
going to pull that report, and we still have to review it for
But they may not
redactions.
be asking for it if it's already in the checkbook. If you say, have you looked
Spin
at
it
this?
around all over the
Your
place.
information.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Do you think it's a benefit?
I do think it's a benefit. I think it's nice for people to be able to go out there and see the transparency level and dig down into that level of detail.
Especially for one of the only communities not doing it at this point.
Right.
A lot of residents.
I don't know how well used it will be, but I do think it's nice.
And I don't think they will, even when it's up there either, yeah.
Public documents, the ones that look at this, target,
Right.
or have
Yeah.
agendas that they.
Right.
I could see vendors actually going on and looking at the data, how much do they spend at Pitney Bowes for their postage machines? I could see stuff like that of sales folks going in and looking at the
But I mean,
data.
in theory, that might only help us when it comes to bidding and those kind of things, right? I mean,
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess we're good.
Okay.
Do we
I
want
would
to
be
talk about?
curious of how many hits they actually get. I wonder if they have a record of that.
I could ask them
Yeah.
to see.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I don't know. I've really had, maybe 2 residents reach out, to see about our participation in the program. So I don't know how popular it would be amongst the residents, but, they do a press release and everything, so maybe it would get some traction. I don't know.
Okay. Do we want to talk about Dorridge? Or does she want to talk about it at the caucus?
Wherever you want.
We can talk about it. Yeah. Let's do it.
Okay, what to do about Dorridge? And the reason why I kind of need the discussion is it's an Ohio Public Works application. I modified the schedule because we didn't do something last year associated with it, so I have to get back to Ohio Public Works. There's a couple things that I'd be looking at doing. Now, again, this is a loan program, and as prices going up, keeps decreasing, our percentages keep going off. So, number one, I can ask them just to extend the schedule like we did last time. They didn't balk at it last time when I extended the schedule. The other option is, can I apply for a second loan on top of the first loan or a second grant on top of the first one in this next cycle if it moves into the following cycle, to see if that is an option, in terms of that, or if they basically want the money turned back, that's another question, because we have moved the cycle. What are we doing, and are we losing that much? We are one of the few that goes after the loans. Like I said, we don't do well in the grant program. We do apply for grants every once in a while because the first attempt, we usually try for the grant, and then we see where the score is, and Akron gets 80% of the money, and so how we do it, it just basically, if somebody else is sitting there looking to free up a project and we're not doing one, that's where I kind of hold the money, but I'm just kind of looking for options on what we're doing. I'm suggesting we take the money from the road portion of it to cover some of those overages we're going to have in asphalt off the bat anyway. Based on lead time, talking with some of the contractors, I bid it this time of year so that we're under contract. In December, they've got the contracts, they can start going, they can start ordering materials. Right now, with everything with COVID, we know materials everywhere have been a problem. The one contractor I was talking to just was telling me just even now on getting a lead time to make a structure is, gone from 6 weeks to 3 months. So lead time on materials is a concern by starting too late in the year if I were to rebid in another couple of months. So I'm suggesting we rebid it next fall. Maybe there's been more equalization of prices. Now, that doesn't mean prices aren't going to go up, because prices could go up, and just like they did this year. But with as much as they went up on this one, I can't see as much. Well, I better not say that. But we rebid it. We have to basically appropriate more funds associated with it. A lot of the piping went up and stuff. So even in the water fund, we were already subsidizing that, which we can still I think there would still be money in the American Recovery Act to subsidize that. We're not jeopardizing that money because we don't have to have that spent next year. It has to be spent in a certain time frame. So the money's still there to do that. But then it gives us time to bid some of those other projects. And those other projects are the road program, which is mainly resurfacing. We already talked about the asphalt. The Ravenna Road program, which is, again, is just resurfacing on Ravenna Road, which has got funding from AMATs on it. We do have another Ohio Public Works program that's in there, which is the White Oak, which really is a reconstruction of the pavement. It doesn't have the piping, so it doesn't have the expense of the pipe material. It has the expense of the asphalt and concrete, depending where those prices are. But I would suggest moving forward with that, ahead of that. And the other thing we have on the books was a Cannon Road storm sewer to replace corrugated metal pipe. We bid that in a package in 2020, right before COVID, and we never made the award. I received bids between $167,000 and $260,000 based on the bidding envelope. So it was a wide bidding envelope. I did estimate closer to the $267 or something like that in the higher numbers because we were separating this as an independent project. I will have to rerun those numbers because the pipe, especially for that size pipe, went up a lot more than what I thought it was. But we are looking at resurfacing Cannon Road with a grant of 80% grant from AMAT. So I need to get the pipe out of the way. So that's kind of critical in getting that done with the funding coming in. So, excuse me. So I guess what I'm looking at, and I just want agreement on that, or if that's kind of the direction we want to go, is to set this up to rebid it in October, November of 2022 so that we can actually start the construction in February and have it done in one season.
Right?
Yeah, that would be in 2023. And that gets the construction all in one season, gets the lawns back in, because if you bid later in the year, you're not going to get your lawns back in and all that, and you're going to have the carryover of all that, which is kind of a little bit of a nightmare for residents to some
It's
degree.
including water line, I can't remember. Or did
It was water line, sanitary, and storm work.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, the one pipe that I don't know, copper, if that will ever come down. But they bid that. One of the contractors told me they bid it in 2 years ago. It was $180 a linear foot for a copper that goes to the house. It says now he got quotes at $8 a linear foot.
Jeez. Wow.
So, like I said, it's almost like wood did. It went crazy. It came back down. It didn't come back but it came back down to something that was a little bit more. But if some of the programs that the federal government put out, if they pass all these things and they start flooding the market with some of the water line infrastructures and things like that, the pricing probably is not going to come down right away.
Okay. I mean, your suggestion is then to wait and bid it out next October and hope to start to build in February, March of '23.
Right.
And we'll complete it in '23. I mean, that seems to be logical.
Yeah, makes
to me.
sense.
If we were having water line breaks every other day, week
Right.
and things like that, I would, again, we're trying to do a program that keeps us ahead of the game. So I think in that we have kept ahead of the game. I think when we started this project, East Idaho had like 7 breaks in it within 3 months or something. So we were trying to be ahead of the game. Right now, we're kind of ahead of the game. I don't want us sliding too far back, so I still want to program it, but I think we can wait another year. And if we have to do a small pavement repair out there somewhere, to get us by a year, we can do that.
I mean, what do you guys think on Daisy? What do you think?
Well, I think.
You like her suggestion?
Yeah, I like her suggestion.
Karen, Maureen, Greg?
Yeah, I'll defer to
Okay
Amy.
with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was talking to the mayor earlier. I think it would be a good idea that we put out a letter to the residents there, whether it be the mayor, and I'd like to be a signer on it as well, and maybe you, the 3 of us, put something out there and just explain briefly.
Right, that it's,
Yeah, because I know there's some folks there that are looking forward to that. So,
okay.
it's something we need to explain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll definitely,
Makes sense.
we talked about that, I brought that up, and
Yeah.
we can put it together, and
Yeah.
absolutely, just because I think it's, again, we talked about it being public. We outline roads, we outline these big projects, and I think residents do look forward to it or plan for it.
Right.
And just to give them some explanation, that may not tune into our meetings about
Right.
what's going on.
Right. Okay.
Good.
Okay.
Okay, then good night.
You're off the hook.
You're up.
Good night, Amy.
Good night. Thanks,
Bye.
Amy.
Thanks. Okay, anybody have any miscellaneous?
No.
No. Anybody? Okay, no miscellaneous. The next meeting will be on December 14th at 6:30. And that's it. We will adjourn finance.